came out with some Emmys and a wife and kids out of that. So it was a life-changing event.
Welcome to the Leadership Table podcast. My name is Chad Reyes, and I'm just so excited to spend the next half hour or so with you and one of my dear friends, Ed Wiseman. You know, we're going to have a very impactful conversation. You're going to find as we continue on this conversation that Ed has tremendous wisdom, tremendous experience. So welcome to the Leadership Table podcast, Ed. We're excited to have you, and just thank you for being with us.
I'm honored to be here with you, Chad, and Danielle do are great things for the community. We've been involved together on a few things. It's just amazing. And I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you. And, you know, I say this often that you're probably one of the most humble people I know because you and your wife have had so much success, right? You guys are Emmy Award winners. You guys have really done some amazing things in the cinematography world. And I really would just love to maybe share with our audience just a little bit of your journey. How'd you get started? Some of the background, some of the successes that you have had, and then we'll jump into a whole conversation around that.
Oh, that sounds great. You want me to begin? I was born in Brooklyn. No, I was. So a different kind of Brooklyn back then. No, I went to college for film and television. So did my wife, Orly, who's my producing partner. But I didn't know her in college. She was a few years different. So we weren't together. We were in the same program, graduated at NYU with a film and television degree, just missed being taught by Martin Scorsese and a few other famous people.
Wow.
Yeah, so never got to hear him, but got out and started working right away. It was an internship. I started as an intern in the business and never stopped working since then. We stayed in New York. We didn't go to Hollywood. We've worked in Hollywood and worked with Hollywood, but we always said we wanted to be in New York where no one get offended, but where the real people are. You know, I mean, New York is such an eclectic mix of people. Yeah. You know, people take the subway. You know, they don't drive their limos. At least my people don't. And we stayed in New York and where the real people are, and we've worked. You know, probably the biggest project that people will remember that we worked on, because I started as an intern and they went all the way up to producing and directing, is the PBS TV series Reading Rainbow, you know, with LeVar Burton. So I worked on every episode. It was great. And then we worked on other projects in between, mostly documentary projects or reality projects, from Martha Stewart specials to, you know, films for the History Channel. All kinds of work in various ways. I won't go through the litany and the list. And yeah, we won a bunch of Emmy Awards along the way.
That's amazing. And just from my understanding, what was the most enjoyable project that you worked on?
You know,
the other one. So just what's the most enjoyable one?
No. I have to say that working on Reading Rainbow for 20 something years was the greatest. And I'll just tell a short story. We met a friend of ours in LA a few years ago. He's a Oscar-winning film director. And he had worked on Reading Rainbow for a number of years, and we traveled with us first actually as a cinematographer and then as a director. And we saw him after not seeing him for a few years. And when we met him for lunch at an outdoor cafe where we got there first, he comes running up to us. And before he says anything else, he says, "Those were the best years of my life." And those were the time we were working on Reading Rainbow. So that project sits within our hearts as a great project to work on.
It's special, right?
The other ones have been good, great, but there's special place, nostalgic place for Reading Rainbow.
It's amazing because you can even go back when you look at like times of your life, right? Where you're like, those moments, while we can't go back there, but those moments were special. And I think that's kind of what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah. I mean, I also came out with some Emmys and a wife and kids out of that. So it was a life-changing event.
And what's amazing is your wife, Orly, also I think she has one more Emmy than you, actually, right?
Yeah, she does. She has 9, I have 8. So what can I tell you? And there's a story behind why I don't have 9, which we could get to later if you want.
No, let's do it now.
You want to do it now? It's a funny story. So actually, my wife, Orly, was the supervising producer. She was my boss. And I recommend to people, and you may have, there you go. And you may have a different opinion of this, but I think that working together first for a number of years and then getting married was a lot easier from what I hear about trying to do it the other way for most people. So it's never, and I used to say, as being a director for the most part, I used to say I like to direct the way my wife supervises me. So that's basically how it works. But anyhow, so we
That's
were up for the Emmys another year, and I had was directed some awards. I had won some directing Emmys and had won some producing Emmys, two different categories. And most of the crew members that we worked with, in fact, almost all of them had won Emmys with us, which is the best part of it is when your team wins their own individual Emmys, recognizing their talent and skill and experience. So anyhow, we're up for the Emmys, and the Emmys office calls and says, you guys were just nominated again, but we don't see Ed's name on the list for producing the series. And they said, he's usually on the list. And the person says, well, it just so happens that this year that, he had to cover some other directing things. He didn't necessarily produce enough episodes. So he was producing, but he may not have made the minimum, et cetera, et cetera. And they said, so we didn't, want to just put him on the list anyhow. So the person comes to me and says, listen, you didn't, or nominated and whatever. And then we went through and counted, and we realized that I actually did produced enough shows that I could win the award, or could be nominated for the award and get another nomination. And then they said, well, I'll just call them up and add your name. I said, you can't do that. And they said, why? I said, well, the nominations already came out and the list is there. They said, but she said they could add it. She said, but we can't. I said, we can't. And she said, why? I said, we're getting married in a few months and they're going to call it nepotism. It was my wife, Orly, my future wife, who left my name off the list by accident for the nomination. Well, it ends up we win that year, and I did not win the Emmy. Well, so I did not win the 9th Emmy because my wife took me off the list, and it was wrong, but we never changed it. So I should have 9.
It's a competitive bargaining chip in the household now.
Yeah, no, you never win, so it doesn't matter. You don't compete. So anyhow, funny. Silly story, but that's so. In spirit, I should have.
That's funny though. Yeah. But so our audience is leaders, entrepreneurs, corporate leaders. Tell me some of the lessons of leadership that you've learned over the years being in Hollywood, dealing with, creating movies and directing and all. Just tell me some of the leadership lessons that have kind of jumped out at you that have helped you grow in your career. That now, most likely people are not going to be doing exactly what you're doing, but they could take the principles and apply it in any area that they're in.
Well, 2 things that come to mind, and that is, 3 maybe. First is credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
Don't take anyone else's credit, and make sure you credit everyone that works for you. From the production assistant on the set to the executive producer, everyone should get credit for their work, and no one should steal somebody else's credit, which sometimes happens in our business. It happens in our business. And the other thing is, when I first started out, I was very efficient and matter of fact. And I loved the work. I love to work more than anything. I love the production of film and television, to the point where as a director, I wouldn't leave the set when they were lighting, setting, or propping. I would be on an Apple box, sitting there on the set, not in a director's chair, just sitting there watching the crew put stuff together. So that was always important to me, but I didn't say please and thank you enough. I wasn't as encouraging because I figured we're all working. Just do your thing. And why do I have to constantly stop to say please and thank you and beg you to do the work? We all are doing the work. And mostly no one cared. But then I realized there were a few younger people that needed to hear that. Not that they were begging to, not that they couldn't work without it. And to this day, it's just not in my personality to always stop and say please and thank you, because I just assume we all love doing it. But I've had to learn to encourage and say please and thank you much more often. And it's much easier for some leaders like you and Danielle, who are really good at that, really good at encouraging.
We struggle through it too.
Well, you've worked on it, and it's really great then, because I have to work on that. But a leadership thing that had to be learned that I still have to take the
Yeah.
time to do. And I think it's so important because people don't know how they're doing. They don't know if they're doing well. They respect you more sometimes than you respect yourself. So they look up to you. And you go home at night and you're thinking about, did I do a good job that day? You know? And they're going home and they're saying, wow, that Ed, he's great, but he didn't even, acknowledge my work.
And
So,
you know what happens a lot of the time, I think, too, is as a leader, when you don't look at yourself as that powerful leader, but when you share something, it has like a 10x effect on the person, right? So meaning when you give that praise and when you give that, affirmation, it has a 10x impact positively. And when
yes,
you bring correction to someone and it's not done correctly, it has a 10x negative impact on their life. And sometimes as leaders, I know sometimes like we're moving so fast, we got so much going on in our lives that we're not thinking like, hey, listen, how does that fall on the person? But it really does. Like it really has the
absolutely.
ability to impact people.
Absolutely. And you guys know that well. I've seen you work and you take the time to make sure that everyone knows how well they're doing and what's going on. And one of the other things is that everyone's different. I learned this from directing. When you direct different performers, and I also do documentaries, so I'm leading everyday people who don't have even an acting background.
Yeah.
The cookie cutter approach just doesn't work, at least for me. I mean, you have to meet them where they are, the people that you're working with, even the
Mm-hmm.
people above you. And you have to be able to, and I failed on many occasions doing that. And, and thinking, how did I miss that? How did I
Yeah.
not see where they were at so that I could, reach to them, reach out to them and reach them. So that's, I think, really important is understanding that everyone is different. And what you say to one person or how you direct one person may not be the same. And what's interesting is when you're in a group or team or you're directing a scene and you're different performers, and this person wants to be first take person, this one needs 10 takes, how you make that work out. This one likes to rehearse, this one doesn't like to rehearse. And then how you make it work out together. I think that's a leadership fine point that even if you're talented or skilled in, you do need to work on. So I think that that's something that I've learned that has to be part of any leading. Anytime you're going to lead. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know if you found that too, but I find that
Yeah.
a lot, especially in our business, in the media, where you meet a lot of creative types that have different work and style and processes. So
That's good.
that's key.
I guess thinking it through this lens, right? Like what is one of the, I guess, the biggest struggles as you're working through with people, especially in Hollywood or working with them in television and entertainment? Do you find that there's a lot of ego? Because I mean, listen, what I've recognized is the higher you go up in any organization, whether that's in business, whether that's in the church, whether that's in, you name it, right? The higher you go up, it really takes a higher level of awareness of like making sure that you realize that you're not really that good and you're not really that bad. But a lot of times we kind of believe our own press.
Mm-hmm.
How have you seen that ego really destroy people in your industry?
It's interesting. We have a saying that says that if you work with top talent, like A-list people,
Yep.
you actually run into less ego problems because for the most part, they're confident and they know themselves. It's the people somewhere in between, and the people on the bottom are humble, but somewhere in between when people are trying to climb the ladder,
Yeah.
those are the folks that you find are insecure. And insecurity is covered up with overconfidence that comes across as ego.
Good.
And then that's what you have to work with. And those people need a lot more hand holding without feeling like you're holding their hand, because you're not holding their hand to look down on them. You're trying to help them get through without that ego exploding all over everyone, and I don't know what is the best way to do that because I think it's individual. I think that I've seen that happen so many times. I guess just to be able to listen. I find I'm a better work listener than I am a home listener.
Yeah. I think
At work, like you have to listen
Yeah.
and it's part of your job, and you just say, I'm going to do it. And then you actually enjoy listening. I interview a lot of people where I'm not on camera. So I'm listening, not like we're talking right now.
Yeah.
But at home, I find that I think I know everything, and I think I know everyone. So I'm less, I'm listening less. And I have to work at that at home. We talked about this during the transformation tables that we've been doing.
Correct.
Community transformation. That was one of my issues that I work on, is being able to listen at home and not just making permanent judgments about what I think I know about my own family or friends. Well, at work, there's that distance. So if you listen, if you're a manager and you're really listening, you've already won 70% of the battle. The other 30% is putting into practice what you've just heard.
Correct. That's amazing.
That makes sense?
In a sense, one of the guys on our team, Ray, he says this, and I love when he says it. He says, your ego is not your amigo.
That's true. It's not your friend.
It's like your ego is not your amigo.
No, and I think the flip side is also an impediment, which is really not recognizing any of the God-given talents and skills that you do have, and learning that you have to work on those, that you have to work those things out, because then we don't see what we can be. We don't have a vision or a destiny of where we should be. And then we flounder. And then that's the other side. Then sometimes we just sit there and we don't grow. I don't know. I will tell you one story, that's kind of interesting. One time we working with Richard Gere, the actor, and we were on set, and it was for a documentary series. And he was, reading some lines about actually some, kids that were in crisis, because it was a project with the UN. It was kids in crisis around the world. It was a documentary series. So Richard Gere was there. And the director who mostly directed documentary, I didn't direct this, I was producing it, was directing documentary work, an outstanding director, an outstanding guy, and made incredible documentary work. And he starts reading these lines that were in the script. And he sees, after he does the take, he sees that the director's not that happy. And again, director has not done a lot of this, done a lot of documentary. And he says to the director, what's the matter? And he said, well, he goes, I'm not sure if that's the best way to express that. And he said, really? He goes, okay. He goes, now this is Richard Gere, come on. And he said, well, what do you think? And he gives him some direction, and Richard Gere then delivers it the same exact way he had done it before. And I come out, I talk to the director, I pull him aside and I say, listen, I said, just, go with the flow, but paint the picture of what you need. Don't tell him what to say, just paint the picture. So he tries to paint the picture, and then Richard Gere comes out and does another take and does it exactly the same way. So now the guy's panicking a little bit. So Richard Gere says to him, well, listen, why don't you just tell me how you want it said? Which is a line reading, which is not something we really do. We don't parrot it. So the director comes, pulls me aside and back to me, goes, what do I do? I said, look, he asked for a line reading. You give him the line reading, give him the way you want it said. So he reads it the way he thinks it should be said, the director. And Richard Gere says, I can't do that. And the director says, when he goes, no, I don't think I can do it that way. And the director said, okay. He goes, but Richard Gere says, okay, but let me give you another reading. I'll give you something a little different. He goes, okay. So he goes out, and Richard Gere reads it exactly the same way he did for the 4 or 5 other takes. And the director looks at me, and I say, tell him it's great. And he goes, that's great. And Richard Gere says, that's great. And the rest of the family. My point is, Gere was right. He knew himself. He knew how to perform it. He's been doing it for a long time. There was absolutely no ego in the way he was doing it. He was trying to communicate to the director that this is how I hear it. So without trying to embarrass him in front of the whole crew, he was trying to get to a place, and it worked out, and the director wasn't embarrassed. But those of us who knew like, oh my goodness, like, this guy Gere is like, he knows what he's doing, and he's going to do it that way. And it was brilliant, by the way. And the director was very happy in the end when he got to the edit room. But there is that kind of thing where he's an A-list talent, doesn't have an ego, just knows, has an ego, but knows just how to do it the way it was supposed to be done. So I had the same problem with Matthew Broderick when I was a younger director. Matthew Broderick, I was directing, and I wanted him to redo some stuff because I thought it wasn't right when I got back into the edit room. And his agent called back and says, look, Matthew thinks that he did it the best way he possibly could. He thinks your direction was spot on because I directed him that way. He said, but if you're really in a tight spot and if it really is not working, he's not going to have a problem if you replace him with somebody else. And it's like, I'm not going to replace Matthew Broderick. So I go back into the edit and I tell the editor, we got to work with this. Again, the A-list talent was 100% correct and the young director was 100% incorrect. Although I directed him right the first time. I got scared and I didn't think it was working. It was brilliant. And by the way, that won an Emmy, but it was brilliant. And Matthew Broderick was right, but with just quiet confidence and just humility. So the A-list people I've never really had a problem with.
It's funny, Ed, that you say that because I see it like even when like I see John Maxwell up in front of groups or even as I've been speaking more in front of global audiences now, but you see that what happens is sometimes is you see something that others can't see because of the perspective that you're looking at the room, right? So like I say that often, like when I'm in front of a room, I'm looking at everyone this way. Everyone else is looking at them from the back side of it. So I'm able to see what's happening in their forward, in their face and their facial expressions. The people that are standing behind them are seeing them from the nodding of their head. Really changes because you could want to say one thing one way and then all of a sudden you realize that that's not the right time.
That's right.
And you need to pivot. And sometimes I think like when you're saying with these A-listers, they can just see something and they can feel something and there's an intuition and that's what kind of makes them who they are.
That's right. That makes them the A-list. Puts them at the top. They're intuitive, they're skilled, they're talented, they're experienced, and they're always a pleasure to work with. I mean, in fact, almost everyone that we've worked with has been amazing at that level. And then other people will get there, But even when I first started directing, I remember one of the criticisms from some performers was that lack of confidence. They didn't like the fact that they saw me thinking on the set too much. It made them nervous. It made them think that I wasn't confident, and that the advice that I got back was, just be confident. And if you're not confident, take it somewhere else and come back and be confident.
Wow.
And to this day, it's tough. Look, there's that story that's in I think the Walter Isaacson book on Steven Spielberg. He tells a story that Spielberg's ritual before every major film that he's made since the beginning. And if I'm getting this wrong out there, someone correct it. But basically what I remember is that before every film, the morning of every film, I think it's the morning of or the night before, he does one thing before the principal photography. When all the money now, he starts shooting with all those millions of dollars and it's all resting on his shoulders. And that one thing is he vomits uncontrollably because he's so nervous at the start. Here is one of the best directors that ever lived. And that's how, that's what he does because it's all on his shoulders and he's nervous. And it just reminds me that you're always constantly working on it. You're never totally free. And if you get to be that confident, then that's when your ego has run away from you, where you just feel like, a little nervousness is not a bad thing.
Well, I think they're, unfortunately, in the world that we're living in, a lot of people wing everything that they do, right?
Yeah.
And they rely so much on their talent. They rely on their ability to speak or convince people or sell people or whatever it may be. And one of the things that I absolutely love about John is how John really is meticulously prepared every time he goes into something. He could wing it. I mean, he's probably one of the best communicators in the world, but he probably doesn't need to practice it all the time and be really meticulous. But I feel like we're just living in a generation that people are comfortable just showing up and just winging it. And it doesn't respect the people. It doesn't respect the people that are preparing. It doesn't respect the people who are playing at a higher game because they're expecting a higher level
That's
of
right.
intentionality.
That's right. I mean, you have to bring in your A game, and you have to be practiced and experienced. And it's funny because I film mostly documentary work where you're going on a set and there's going to be things that are going to happen that are out of your control. And there's only so much you can prepare for it. But if you're prepared on the things that you're supposed to be prepared on and have that down, when the unexpected happens, you're able to handle it, you know? And I think that's really important, you know, preparation and experience, talent, skill, experience, and preparation are key, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it would be amazing to see, you mentioned something earlier in our conversation where you were talking about how the goal is to really get people to reach their full potential, right? And it's amazing to see people that have so much talent, but they're not willing to put the time and the effort in to develop the talent. And
Absolutely.
then people who put the time and the effort, but they don't have the talent. And you imagine if they had the talent. And then there's those special people that have the time, the talent, and the gifting.
That's
and
right.
but imagine if people really put the effort in to become world class at their craft.
Absolutely. And you're leading to another thing. I'm talking about preparation. I thought about this before. Our thing is, see if it would be an opportunity to talk about it. And I don't know if you've heard me say this before, but there are so many people that are trying to do what they love and are passionate about it, but they're not that good at it.
Mm.
And there are people that are really good at something, but they're passionate about something else, and they never pursue what they're really good at. So, for example, let's say there's a person who is inside them is a talent, God-given talent and skill to be a world-class surgeon. But they really love to play the guitar or bass or drums, and they want to be in a rock band. So they don't pursue being a surgeon, but they pursue being a rock band artist, or flip it around. But still, let's say it's that way, right? And then they go to become a fair to middling rock band person. And they never really reach. What about all the lives they didn't save?
Yeah.
Because they didn't become a surgeon. Because your talents and gifts are not just for you.
Correct.
God gave them to you for everyone else.
That's
so
true.
That same person could have become a world-class surgeon, made a ton of money, saved lives, still pursued their passion and their love of music as a hobby, maybe played wedding band gigs on the side, and then could have used all the money they made to build a second career doing number two.
Yeah.
So I always say to folks, and I got corrected when I was younger. I got pushed into things that I didn't necessarily like, but other folks thought I was good at. And those things that I ended up pursuing and becoming better at, I found that I had some talent in, and I worked at it, and I ended up liking it a lot. In fact, I ended up loving it because there's reward in doing things you're good at and succeeding.
That's cool.
And then that builds you up in other ways. So I always tell folks, my lesson is don't let go of what you love, but really make sure you pursue what you're talented and good at. Even if it's this much talent, and then work at it and build it and become successful. And you'll end up loving it, or you might incorporate the thing that you really love into that, or that can become a separate thing. You don't have to let it go, but don't waste your God-given skills. If God made you a great surgeon or a great rock musician, or, whatever he made you in, make sure you don't waste it, Cemeteries filled with people who died with their talent and never used it.
I know, it's nuts. I think of Proverbs, the book of Proverbs, right? And Solomon saying that a person's gift opens up doors and puts them in the presence of influential people.
That's right. Yeah.
And a lot of people say, well, how do I know my gifting? How do I know what I'm gifted at? And I say this when I get to coach leaders and, whether entrepreneurs, corporate teams, I say this: gifting is this. It's where your competency and your passion merge.
Yeah.
If you're good at something, you're competent at something, but you're not passionate about it, right? That's a problem.
Right.
And if you're passionate about something, but you're not good at it, like I'm passionate of singing, but I'm not good at it, that's a hobby.
Yes,
But
exactly.
when you're passionate about something and you're competent at something, baby, watch out.
That's right. That's the combination. And you know what? I know my name is Wiseman. This does not come from, well, it probably is divine wisdom that I got it from, but there are a lot of battle scars. I've made more mistakes than I could ever account. I've hit so many bumps in the road. I know these things from experience, from being burned and burning myself and being told by others, and correcting. So that's why correction and discipline is actually a good thing. Don't shut off the people that are lovingly trying to correct you. And even if someone is not doing it lovingly and criticizing you, take a step back, strip away their antagonism and say, wait, is there some core nugget here that I have to work on? Not to bring me down, but can I use that to enrich myself? Can I take their trash and make it my treasure?
That's good. Can I take their trash and make it my treasure? Oh, that's good.
Okay. You can take it.
That's good.
I got to remember that again, too. Remind me I said that.
I love that. So we probably have another minute or two. Any parting wisdom for our audience and anything that you'd say, hey, if there's one thing that I'd love for you to take away what I shared, this is it.
I would go back to what we talked about before. I would soul search and find out how you can make this world a better place by just using your talents. Find out what God put inside you, how you were created, what's in there, and use it. Even if you don't like it at first, use it. How many people get together? People end up getting married with a spouse they didn't like when they first met. We were just talking about the other day. We used to fight. Well, I never liked, and they end up loving each other and getting married because there's some opposites that are going on there, and they make a great team and a combination, and they find everlasting love. We should find everlasting love with the things that are inside us. Like you said, put passion with those talents and skills, and then take experience to build it and make something. That's what I recommend. And I haven't always passed that test in everything, but in a few things, maybe I have,
Well, and I can tell you this, that our conversation today, I know added a lot of value to all of our audience and our listeners. I want to thank you, and I want to thank
You're so kind.
No, you guys, you have a huge heart to make a difference in people's lives, and you could feel that. You could feel it in our conversation.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you for all that you do. If our audience wants to get in touch with you, someone wants to produce a documentary that wants to be world class, how do they reach you?
They can email me. I'm right out there. It's ed@movingpicturesnyc.com. ed@movingpicturesnyc.com. You can mention you saw me on this podcast. I'll be shocked that if anybody remembers, but email me, ed@movingpicturesnyc.com.
That's awesome. Well, Ed,
and you're great. And thank you. You made this easy. If I made a fool of myself, edit out anything that just doesn't work. I've done that for other people. You could do it for me.
Well, I just tell you, thank you again. And I want to thank our audience. Thank you for spending time with us on the Leadership Table podcast. You often hear Danielle and I say that the Leadership Table podcast is where mature leaders have mature conversations. And today, Ed and I just had a mature conversation. I hope you were blessed by it. Until next time, be well.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Leadership Table. I am so excited that you've joined us. Hey, listen. You want to join us in future episodes where we're going to invite some of our greatest friends, some of the greatest leaders we know, to share all about their leadership journeys and just add tremendous value to you and your teams. Hey, listen, drop a comment below on your biggest takeaway, that what is impacting you the most. Like it, share it with those people that you know need to hear this message, and subscribe. And hey, listen, turn on the notifications. I just want to thank you because you are making a difference. As you help us, we help you, and we just divide the work and multiply the impact. My friend, thank you for joining us on the Leadership Table.